Hello and welcome to the latest in our series of live careers webinars brought to you by the HOP platform. So HOP stands for the Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal. It's a website that we hope every young person going to school or college in Hertfordshire is aware of, because HOP is a website that is a resource and a library for you to find out loads of careers information. Now, the purpose of today's webinar is to let you know a little bit more about what it's actually like to work at the fabulous Warner Brothers Studios in Leavesden, which is one of the, well, if not the most attractive and most, I guess, mysterious places to work in the whole of the county. Some of you may well have been there. You may well have been on the studios tour before. But what we're going to do today is we're going to explore a little bit more about the different roles and the different jobs that people do on site there. So, just to give you a little bit of housekeeping, this session is being recorded live at the moment. So for those of you that are watching this session live, which is 4:30 on a Thursday afternoon, firstly, well done for coming home from school or college and logging onto this webinar and deciding this was the best use of your time. I can't say how impressive that is, that you come home from school and you're now really proactively exploring your career options. We are recording this, so it will be available on our YouTube channel from tomorrow to watch back. So if you watch it and you think that one of your friends really should watch it as well, then you will be able to share that with them and they'll be able to watch it back. But by watching it live, the advantage you guys have got is that you can pose your own questions to our panelists. So anything that we discussed today that you want to know a little bit more about, you will be able to do that. So the way that you do that is on the dashboard that you've got on your screen, there is a questions tab on there. If you click on questions, it opens out a little text box, and in the text box you can type your question in, and in that text within your question, that will only be visible to me, and then I will direct it to whichever of the panelists you want to direct that question to. So if you want to direct it to anyone specifically, just put their name at the front of it, then I will know that you want that question asked to that person. And we will try and get through as many of your questions as we possibly can. Some of you put some questions in on the registration when you registered, which is great, and we've tried to incorporate those questions into the first part. So for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to go through those questions, but then hopefully it's over to you for you to submit your own questions to us. So do take that opportunity to do that. What I'm going to do first of all, then, I think, without any further ado, I want to introduce our four fabulous panelists to you and get them to tell you a little bit more about the roles that they do at Warner Brothers Studios in Leavesden. So first of all, in no particular order, I'm going to say good afternoon to Amy. Tell us a little bit more about you, Amy.
Hello, I'm Amy and I'm the PR coordinator for Warner Brothers Worldwide Tours and Retail. So that covers the Warner Brothers Studio Tour in London, as well as lots of other Harry Potter elements of the business, including a shop in New York and a photographic exhibition in London.
Sure, thank you, Amy. And good afternoon, Thea.
Hello, I'm Thea. I'm a client services coordinator for the studios. So my day-to-day is kind of being a key contact for the productions that we have on site.
Okay, thank you. And good afternoon, Emma.
Hello, I'm Emma. I'm an infrastructure operations engineer and I help provide IT services to both the film productions and the Warner Brothers employees.
And Emma, if I'm not mistaken, I think of the four panelists, you are the one that went to college in Hertfordshire?
I did. I went to West Herts in Watford.
Okay, fantastic. I'm sure we will talk about that, and a big shout out to anyone watching from West Herts College today. And then good afternoon, Abby.
Hello, I'm Abby. I'm the marketing assistant for the studio tour and also the photographic exhibition in London.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll explore a little bit more about each of your particular roles as we go through this webinar. I guess, look, first thing that I want to discuss, and let me ask Thea this question, is there's probably a perception that to work at Warner Brothers Studios in Leavesden, you've got to have a background in film and media production, but I mean, roughly how many people on site are actually got those qualifications and experiences?
I wouldn't know exactly how many people, but in general, you don't have to have done a media-related course to come and work here. Like the people we've got on this call today, there's lots of different jobs within the film industry and WBSL. So you can do whatever that you want to do, whatever you're passionate about. Chances are there's probably a job within the industry that suits what you're passionate about.
Sure, okay. And then, but Emma, just give us some local geographical context as well. Where exactly is Warner Brothers Studios in Leeds? So I guess some people will have been there before, but kind of roughly where is it?
It's actually not far from the West Herts College in Watford. And it's right on the edge of Leavesden. So there's a big roundabout, goes off to the M25 and the A41. It's literally on the left. It's very accessible, and we get loads of people. They come here by bus. We can drive. We've got our own car park here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, so it's somewhere very close to Watford, not too far from St Albans, but certainly in Hertfordshire, as you said, very accessible to get to as well. Amy, some of the people watching this may well have been on the Studios tour before, but I mean, how big is the site? I mean, how long would it take to walk around?
The site in general, Warner Brothers Studios Leavesden, it would probably take you between 45 minutes and an hour. The studio tour specifically is a 4-hour tour. We've got over 250 members of staff just at the tour. So yeah, it's a huge, enormous team.
Okay, and Abby, let me come to you. Just sort of set the scene for us. I mean, what's it like when you actually turn up on site every day? Does it sort of feel quite sort of magical?
Yeah, so it's not like a normal office environment. You walk in and straight away you've got the music playing. If we have like an early tour, you have like visitors coming in and there's like an excitement and buzz because for me and Amy, we work on top of the tour. So we have to actually walk through admissions, and yeah, straight away you're kind of just, it does feel like a more magical office, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we were just talking beforehand. If someone came for a studio tour, I mean, Amy, approximately how much of the site would they be seeing if they just came for the tour and then went to the gift shop?
Yeah, probably only 10% of the site. A lot of it is production, so that's all very private. You see that when it's on the big screen in the cinema. But for the studio tour itself, probably only 10% of the site. It's made up of 3 sound stages, conveniently named J, K, and R after the author of the Harry Potter books, and that's just a fraction of what's at the site in Leavesden.
Yeah, and again, Amy, and you guys, I think you're all pretty much the same. How much of the site do you actually get to see once you're actually working there?
Well, from a tour perspective, we don't see very much at all because the are very private. But I'm sure Thea and Emma are on site see a lot more than we do.
Okay. Well, Thea, again, just talk us through that. There's the studios themselves, and then there's the tour site. So, how much of the site have you been on yourself?
I've probably been in almost every space that we have on site. For those of you who don't know, the studios is literally the other side of the fence from the tour, so we're really close. I can literally see the tour from where I'm sat right now. So yeah, because me and Emma are on the studio side, and we're looking after the productions, they all have their own bases across site, so we're kind of here, there, and everywhere. So yeah, we do get to see the majority of the site.
Okay. So if you've got any questions about perhaps physically being on site there, do submit those, and we'll come into those, because I mean that's a really, really important part. And I know all 4 of you have worked in other places before, and that physical working environment that you're in is a really important factor. I want to find out a little bit more about what you guys all do on a day-to-day basis, because I mean, again, set the scene a little bit. The studio site is there. It's there to produce TV and media productions, but not all of you guys are directly involved in that. But I guess everything that all of you do is all geared around the fact that the site is there to create these incredible films and productions. So, I mean, Emma, let me start with you. Tell us in a little bit, what does the average day look like for you, if indeed there is an average day?
So with my job, it's very much reactive. So I know I said I work in IT, and a lot of people think IT means just sitting behind a desk, you're answering calls and working through tickets. That's absolutely not what I do here. So I'm constantly walking around the site. I go through about 3 pairs of jeans a year because of how much I walk around. So a couple of examples would be if someone needs to connect to something, so you've got film productions of different departments, you've got art, you've got VFX, editorial, the production office, they all need to connect to different things, and that's my job. I help them connect to what they need to connect to. So servers, we rack stuff in data centers for them, so they need to be secure, so we put firewalls in. Some of the lower end stuff, we put desk phones in the suite before they move in, so we just send them extensions when they move in, they log themselves in, make their calls. Wi-Fi in buildings, if they're saying, oh, my Wi-Fi is bad in this building, like, no problem, we'll go over, we'll troubleshoot with you, see what the problem is. But it really is different every day because I react to what they need from me. So they'll call me, say, I need to do this, how do I do it? And then I work with them to figure it out and then implement it.
Okay. And just tell us, Emma, is your background and were your qualifications in IT?
Yes, they were. I did IT at GCSE. I then went to West Herts College and I did IT. It is a coincidence that I specialised in multimedia. You don't need that to be able to work here. It was just an interest of mine.
Okay, so I mean, if I could take you back in time to when you were maybe 16 or 17 years old, what was your career aspiration? Was it to go and work in IT, or did you think, do you know what, that Warner Brothers Studios is not far from me? I really want to work there. I just want to find something I'm good at so I can get there. How did it work for you?
So when I was 15 and 16, when I was doing IT, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So if you don't know what you want to do at this time, it's okay. I know I wanted to do something in the IT field, maybe something to do with game design. So when I was at college and we were applying for unis, I know personally I'm not good in exam conditions. I work well with coursework because I have time to work on it. So I looked at the apprenticeships because apprenticeships are quite coursework based. And I saw the one at Warner Brothers, which was specific to IT apprenticeship. And I was like, that sounds amazing. I'm getting an IT apprenticeship, I'm learning new skills, and it's with a really big American company that has a great reputation.
Sure. Okay. So Abby, let me come to you as well, because you went to university, didn't you? So I mean, just talk us through your sort of aspirations from maybe 16 or 17 years old, and how did you end up at Warner Brothers?
God, 16 feels like a long time ago, but I remember I was torn between doing graphic design and business because I felt like I always had a creative side, but also quite a business analytical side. So my tutor at the time was like, why don't you do advertising, marketing? It kind of pushes the two together. You get to be creative, yet there's still, you know, in marketing, there's budget and there's strategy. So I went to uni and did marketing. And within my degree, it was 4 years, and one of the years I had to do a placement year, which was it was probably the best thing about my degree was getting to do that year in industry, because it helps you figure out what you do like, what you don't like. So I worked for Amazon and Prime Video, and it was an amazing year. I learned so much, but I also learned that I did want to go into a little bit more of a creative role because my role there was very budget, spreadsheets, planning, and I felt like it was trapping my creativity a little bit. So when I found this role after I graduated, I didn't really know what to expect, but it's definitely met my expectations in creativity. I think my day-to-day role changes. Some days I'm working with creative agencies, making like posters and things that you'll see for the studio tour. Other days I'm on photo shoots and productions that can go on till 2 a.m., which is always really fun. So yeah, I think it's a great starting role because I'm exposed to lots of different types of work within my one role. So I'm really seeing what the future could be like.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to go over to Amy then to answer the same question. So first of all, tell us, what does day-to-day look like for you, Amy, and what was your background and journey into that?
Sure, yeah. So I had a bit of a strange journey into it as well. So I did a degree, I did it in English language and linguistics. And it was such a broad degree that it had lots of avenues off of it. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do from like a speciality point of view after that. So I saw an apprenticeship as a PR apprentice at Studio Tour, and I applied and got that role and did an 18-month apprenticeship. That was like a level 4 qualification, I think, in public relations and communications. So I was very lucky to work hard and get offered a job afterwards, and I've been here 5 years now. But PR in general is if you ever see an advert for a studio tour that's you're watching BBC News and you see the studio tour, or you open a newspaper and you see the studio tour, that's sort of what I do. So working with journalists to cover new stories at the studio tour, working to advertise new merchandise at the New York shop, lots of contact with journalists, communications, writing press releases, running events. So it's a really varied role, which is great, and sort of taps into a lot of things that I've done in my past. So sort of that people aspect. When I was at university, I was actually a kitchens, bathrooms and bedrooms designer for Homebase, so completely opposite to what I do now. But I took so many transferable skills from just doing a job while at university, and sort of that people aspect really sort of plays into what I do today, as well as lots of other things. But yeah, the publicity side is what we do best.
Sure. Okay. And then Thea, I mean, I've left you to last to answer this question because I know that your role is the one that's perhaps closest to the actual production side of things that goes on. So tell us a little bit about what the average day looks like for you then.
So kind of similar to Emma, no day is the same. It's all very reactive on this side. My day-to-day, so I'm a coordinator, and that means basically within our team we have 2 coordinators and assistant manager, and between us we are the key contacts for different productions. So we all look after a few productions each, and basically what that means is we look after them from the quoting stage all the way through to the end. So in terms of quoting, we then draw up the contracts, because film production includes stages, workshops, offices, temporary structures, such a wide variety of things. It's not just here's a stage, do your thing. There's so much that we help with in terms of contracting that. And then once they're contracted and they're here, obviously they're here for a few months. While they're here, we're a key contact for the day-to-day stuff. So if they're not sure, there's a leak in their office, what do? They can call us and we can direct them to the correct people. If they've got any questions, actually, we need to extend on a stage a little bit, they can come to us. But yeah, no day is the same. It's all very, very reactive. They could be like, oh, actually, we really need another workshop. We didn't realize we need it, and we've got to find somewhere on site, take them, show them, and get it contracted.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So we've just gone through and we've discussed everyone's jobs and what they do on a day-to-day basis and how they got there. So if anything that we've just talked there sort of piqued your interest and you want to know a little bit more, do submit your question. So find your question tab. It comes out as a text box. Type the question in. If you want it to go to anyone in particular, try and put their name at the front of it. Then I'll know to direct it over to them. Next subject of discussion what I want to come on to is, well, how do you actually get into Warner Brothers Studios, Leavesden? How do you do that? So I know that I think at least 3 of you all came through an apprenticeship journey as well. So firstly, well, let me go to Emma actually. Emma, can you just explain regardless of who the company is, but explain what does an apprenticeship actually mean? How are your days and weeks constructed?
So on my apprenticeship, what it was is you're basically learning on the job. So you're going out there, you are doing the job alongside someone else who's teaching you, but there is also a theory side to it. So I had every Friday was dedicated to my studies. So I would have a video call with my teacher. He would go through, he'd be like, right, I need this essay by then, here's your criteria. And a lot of it was screenshotting evidence of me interacting with people on the studio, and I had to get people in my team to write me witness statements, and that would go towards my grade and stuff. So you are working, but you also need to prove that you're doing it as well, and that's how you get your qualification at the end. And then there was a lot of theory behind, like I had to do some hardware theory because I do IT, and some telecoms theory, and then you had to prove that I was able to talk to people properly, show them how I write my emails, show them I know how to put things in my calendar, stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. And then Thea, because I know you completed an apprenticeship as well through Warner Brothers. yours was very specific to your job that you're doing now, wasn't it? Obviously, it's not the same as the one that Emma did.
Yeah, so mine was a level 3 in business administration. So obviously, kind of two parts of my job. There's being out on the ground and helping the productions, but there's also, you know, the management looking at the figures, doing the contracts. So my apprenticeship kind of focused on a lot more of that side of things. So kind of similar to Emma in a little bit in terms of like showing that you can use your emails correctly on your calendars and everything like that, as well as, you know, handling post and kind of the key principles of business. So that's mainly what I covered in mine. Myself and Emma started at the same time doing our apprenticeships. But yeah, I found it a really valuable experience because I wasn't sure that uni was going to be for me. So doing an apprenticeship meant that I was out on the job doing what I wanted to do and learning at the same time, which was great.
Sure. Okay. And then, just in the interest of balance, Abby, you of course did graduate. You said you did. Was it marketing as a degree?
Yeah, I did marketing as a degree. So it was a sandwich course. So it meant I did 4 years and I had to do the placement year. It wasn't optional. So yeah, that was in my 3rd year. And then after the year in industry, I got to go back to uni, which was quite nice because you get to work for a year and then be like, I'm not ready for the real world yet. And then go back to uni and do my final year, which I graduated last July.
So the point we're trying to get to here is there's no right or wrong way. There's no prescriptive route that you've got to have gone to university to, you know, to go and work for an employer like this. And no, equally, going to university isn't going to prevent you from doing so as well. Now, Amy, you sort of cover both bases, don't you? Because you went to university and then you came in and you did an apprenticeship. So just talk us through, how did that work for you?
Yeah, so I think when you're at 6th form age, there is a lot of pressure about university, apprenticeship, what's next, do you go into a job? And I just sort of went into university because I didn't really know what I wanted to do and chose a subject that was quite broad, so I knew I'd have options afterwards. And yeah, the apprenticeship came up with Warner Brothers and it felt immediately like a good fit. Everything in my English degree I could transfer, and the copywriting side of publicity, it was really beneficial. And I definitely don't think that having a degree was the reason I got my apprenticeship or won everyone over. I think it was just like the quality of the work you provide and how personable you are and things like that. So yeah, definitely not one route in. There's 2 routes and you can take both if you want.
Sure. Okay. Thea, I know when we spoke earlier in the week, you were saying that you're sort of part of a process at the moment that's looking to recruit some young people into roles at Warner Brothers Studios. And we got on the screen there the REACH scheme at the moment, which is the studio apprenticeship scheme to give people a kickstart into careers in, I guess, studio productions. Do you just want to explain a little bit more about what that involves, and then we'll talk a little bit later on about what the recruitment process looks like?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, we're launching a new apprenticeship scheme, and that's looking at kind of, I think it's across quite a few different departments here. Some new ones like virtual production, which we've not had apprentices on site here before. So really exciting things that are a really valuable way to kind of see, actually, if you want to work in film, you know, you don't have to go straight in and try and be director. There's all these different roles that you could come work for a studio and get to know productions and see what they're like first. So yeah, I know that's launched at the moment, and I think you can apply on our website. So please
Sure.
do if you're interested.
So the QR code you can see on your screen there, and I did test it out beforehand. If you use that QR code, that will take you directly through to that apprenticeships page at the moment. So, I mean, with Amy being a case in point here, these apprenticeships could even be relevant for people who have gone to university already. But I suppose particularly they're looking at people who are leaving school or college and for a first opportunity out there. So the information, so I've written down here that the REACH apprenticeships are available for client services, virtual production, plumbing, set lighting, and post-production as well. So do have a look at that. Even if you're not leaving school this year, even if it's a few years away for you, just have a look at this because it's really good information for you to gain at this point. Just thinking about, so some of the people watching this at the moment may be about to start A levels, or they may be about to go to college, may even be about to start GCSEs. Is there any advice that any of you would give around any particular subjects that you think it would be really useful to have? So I guess film and media production, some schools or colleges will offer variations of that. Let me go to Amy. You were nodding your head there, so I'm going to come to you. Any advice you'd give on subject choice?
Yeah. So it sort of depends where you want to land. From a marketing perspective, there's really broad degrees that cover just marketing, copywriting, publicity. Even a degree in business would probably be really beneficial. Yeah, from a marketing perspective, there's so many routes in and so many beneficial ways, but yeah, it sort of depends on the role.
Yeah. So Amy, I mean, go back to when you were 16 and you're doing your GCSEs. Knowing what you know now, would you have changed your choices for what you would have done?
I mean, I would have saved a lot of money if I just started at an apprentice and not done the degree, but I wouldn't actually, because it gave me lots of opportunity to think about what I wanted to do. I think I can't stress enough how much you do not need to know what career you want to go into at 18, especially not at 16, because you're still growing and learning and working out where you want to fit into the world. So I would say if you're unsure like I was, try and go for something that's quite broad so that you can develop into career paths. And if you don't, that's absolutely fine too, because there's still apprenticeships, there's still entry-level jobs. Recently, we've just hired for a PR assistant, and that was not an apprenticeship. There was no qualification attached to that. It was entry level, and it was just hiring for graduates. So I'd say just, you don't have to have it all figured out, just know where your interests lie and follow that for now.
Sure, no, that's good advice. Emma, I want you to just go back in time and see what you can remember about the recruitment process. So when you applied to get onto that apprenticeship scheme, what did you have to do? I mean, first of all, where did you see the advert and what happened next?
I remember I was at college actually, and they kind of force you to have a look at both alleys. They're like, right, look at unis, now look at apprenticeships. And we went on Indeed, and they were just like, so type in Indeed, an area that you want to work in. I typed in IT apprenticeship, and the first thing that came up was Warner Brothers. And that was actually the only apprenticeship I applied for.
Okay, wow, 100% success rate. What did you have to do? So did you have to send your CV in, or was it an application form online? How did it work?
I believe I had to send in a CV and a cover letter, just kind of explaining why I was applying, what skills I could bring. And then they called me and said, so you've got through to the open day, and it was held in a hotel behind the studios actually, and there was loads of us there. There must have been about 30 or 40 of us. We all got put on tables and we were groups. I remember the first thing we had to do is they handed us a piece of paper. It had a list of words on there, and they said, pick the word that best describes you. And you had to speak in front of everyone, so that they're kind of looking at, what's your confidence like? Which word do you pick? How creative can you be? And it was a lot of team building exercises. So we had to take turns in groups to stand up at the front. And they do that. If you've ever done any team building thing, they always do the same task where you've got 5 items on a deserted island. What do you take and why? So we had to do that and pitch your ideas. And it was actually quite a fun day, to be honest. You meet new people and you kind of go out your comfort zone a little bit, but then you learn from it, don't you? So.
Yeah, and clearly you did well in that session. So what feedback were you given?
So the feedback I was given was, at the time, they said, we can see you're not the most comfortable with being in front of loads of people and talking. So I knew that was an area I could improve on. But then at the same time, they're like, we can see that you give people the time to speak and then you speak after. So I wasn't one of those people that was talking over everybody to try and look good in front of the people that were observing. And they said they really liked that. And then Once they whittled it down to, I think, 5 of us, we then had individual interviews with who's my now manager and my now SVP and a lady from HR. And then that was more of a personal, get to know you, what are you doing at the moment, and just a normal job interview.
Yeah, okay, and you obviously did very, very well that you got through that and you thrived in your career. Abby, what can you remember about the recruitment process when you joined?
So mine was a little bit unusual just because it was during COVID. So I didn't do any face-to-face interviews, which I had to do in my placement year. So it was very different. I remember I applied, I think via LinkedIn, and then I heard back. So I sent my CV off, heard back from HR, where I just had like a normal chat. It was kind of interviewee, but more of a like normal phone call. And then I just had a Teams interview with my now manager and another manager in the team. And then I heard back, which it was pretty quick, but I wouldn't say it was typical just because it was in COVID, and I think it was harder to get people on site and do face-to-face and that kind of thing.
Okay, and Thea, I'm going to ask you the question because the boot's on the other foot for you now that you're going to be part of that team that will be recruiting young people in there. What is it that Warner Brothers Studios Leavesden is looking for in young people? What's the sort of skills and qualities and attributes they want to see?
I would say really just make sure you're yourself, just be as authentic as possible when you're writing your cover letter, or if you're at an assessment day, anything like that, just be your authentic self. There's not actually that many people on the studios in terms of the department sizes aren't huge, so everybody gets on really well. So I think a key thing that people be looking for is making sure that you do have some confidence. But if you are not the most confident person, do not worry. When I started as an apprentice, I was not a very talkative person for the year-long apprenticeship, and now that I've been here 5 years, I don't stop talking. So don't panic if you're kind of thinking, oh gosh, I'm not the most confident person. Is it worth me applying? Definitely do it. It's also, it's always useful if you do have qualifications that are kind of within the realm of the department that you're applying for, but again, don't have to. It's an apprenticeship, so you're going to be learning on the job. Before I started here, I didn't really have loads of knowledge about what would be required from me. Obviously, there's a little bit of information, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I was a little bit nervous about that, but you're here to learn as well. So don't overthink it, don't worry about it, and just be your authentic self.
Okay, thank you. Amy, are there any particular qualities that you notice that a lot of people there all have? So whether it's a tour guide or whether it's someone working in Emma's team or part of Abby's team, what are the sort of common skills do you think that really stand out if you're working at Warner Brothers Studios in Leavesden?
Yeah, so I think there's a role for everyone really, because at the studio tour specifically, we're made up of the front of house staff specifically. You can either work in admissions, who are all fairly introverted people. They like talking to people on arrival, but they're not massively extroverted and chatty. They work in our car park, so they help with car parking. Then you've got our interactors, who are the ones that have all of the Harry Potter knowledge and talk to the visitors all the time, and they often have a background in performing arts and they're really bubbly and chatty. Then you have the office staff, who are a mixture of all of that. So I'd say that there's attributes in everyone that you could find a role at the studio tour for. It's just finding what would work best for you, really.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Well, I hope we've set the scene here. I'm going to go to the questions that you guys have already submitted, and there's several in here already. If you want to ask a question, though, do put it in now. This is your opportunity. Any questions that you put in, we're going to have time to get through all of them. So look, let me just start reading through these, I guess. Didn't look like any of these are specifically for any of you. So I'll go through these. So do you recommend, we probably covered this now, but I will ask anyway, do you recommend or think we need a degree? So, well, Abby, let me ask you this question. As the one member of the panel who has got a degree, what advantages do you think that you have within your role that perhaps someone who hadn't gone to university wouldn't have?
So I definitely don't think it's necessary to have a degree. I think the rest of the panel have shown that, but it does have some benefits. I definitely think that if you want to go to university, it's a great way of learning, not specifically what you learn on your course, just other skills that are transferable to any role, such as confidence, how to write emails, how to set up your LinkedIn profile. They kind of cover that with most degrees. Also teaches you a lot of independence and how you like to work, if you're a team player, not a team player, that kind of thing. I think in my interview, it did give me a lot of examples, which definitely helped me. They kind of ask you questions like, think of a time where you've had to do this. And I think doing a lot of, for example, one of the questions would typically be, think of a time you've had to deal with time management. And when you've had a degree, you definitely have to manage your time with all your different assignments. So I think it's helpful if you don't know what you want to do, you want to build some foundational skills, and it does give you a lot to talk about. I definitely don't think they're a waste of time.
For sure. And then, Thea, as someone who didn't go to university, do you sort of look back and think, oh, do you know what, I really would have enjoyed doing that? Or I'm sure you had friends that did go to university. So is there anything you feel that you missed out on? And is there anything that you might knowledge that you might have gained?
I think it's different for everybody. Different things work for different people. I finished college and then worked for a year while I tried to find something that I wanted to do. It's difficult, I think, obviously going to uni, a lot of your friends are going there, and I certainly felt quite a lot of pressure. And when I wasn't going to university, I was kind of like, oh, everybody else is. But actually, I think with the apprenticeship and, you know, with any entry role, it proves you don't have to. If you want to, that's great, but it's not a necessity.
Sure. Okay, right, I'm going to move on to the next question. I don't know whether any of you are going to be able to answer this one, so I'm just going to put it out there and jump in if you can answer it. But it's a good question. What jobs for secondary school students does the Warner Brothers Studio Leavesden offer? So, i.e. maybe during summer holidays. So we're talking about sort of casual work or part-time hours. Any of you able to answer that?
As far as I'm aware, you have to be 16, I'm afraid, and out of school now, I think. But I couldn't be sure. It'd be one to check on the recruitment page of the website, I think.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah, it's a good place. I will share a slide in a moment with a QR code that will take you directly through to the careers page. But presumably seasonal work, you're working in the shops, particularly over summer holidays or Christmas, could be a good job. Next question. The apprenticeship I'm doing for Warner Brothers Studios is customer service. So what will I be doing? So if someone was doing a customer service apprenticeship, what sort of things do you think they're likely to? Again, I don't know who's best placed to answer that. So jump in if you think you can add something to that.
I might be able to answer that one. So in client services, not only are we the first point of contact for clients on site, but also the main line comes through to our department as well. So we often get people, you know, who are trying to get through the tour, who've accidentally come through to us, or trying to get through to our London offices who have come through to us. So that definitely is part of the role. It's not just the people here. In terms of what to expect, obviously it's, you know, kind of general customer service skills. So, you know, making sure that you are helpful as you can possibly be, or if you don't know the answer, being like, let me find out and I'll come back to you. Yeah, I hope that answers a little bit.
So, Theo, it's a good opportunity to actually ask the question. So you're in client services. Can you just explain what's the difference between customers and clients?
That's a really good question. Not too much. So we used to be called the sales department, and then we did change to client services just because most of the people who we deal with, whether you know they're on site or they're potentially coming site, they are our clients. We have lots of people who are here on a regular basis, lots of people, production teams who jump from film to film. So they're always here. So they're kind of our clients. So that's, why we go with client services rather than customer services.
Okay. Next question. I really enjoy art and animation and was wondering if there is anyone that I can talk to that has done an animation apprenticeship at Warner Brothers Studio. So are you aware of any animation roles?
I suppose that would be more Delaney Lee, our post-production house. I'm not sure if they do apprenticeships.
So that when they are on the Reach scheme, they were post-production with Delaney Lee was one of them. So I'll put that QR code up again and maybe have a look through that. Obviously, it's not an area of expertise that any of you guys are in, but can you just explain the relationship between Warner Brothers and Delaney Lee?
Yeah, can do. So WBSL is made up of lots of different teams. We've obviously got the tour, got the studio, we've got our set lighting and rigging departments, and then we've got Delaney Lee, which is our post production team. They are based mainly in Soho, but they also have a base now on site at Leavesden. So they're kind of responsible for lots of different things that I probably can't explain very well, but for example, at the end of the shoot day, productions obviously want to review what they've shot. So they do dailies where they can go, basically looks like a really big cinema. And if you go on our website and look, you can look at the spaces, and there's some pictures of it there, where they go in and they review the footage. So yeah, it's really great that we've actually got them based on site now.
Okay, this isn't going to answer that question directly. I'm just putting up on the screen here one of the earliest slides we had. The QR code on the left-hand side will take you straight through to the webinar that we did, where we covered post-production as a theme from a couple of years ago. And one of the panelists that day was an animator from Delaney Lee. So if you click on that QR code, it will take you through to the YouTube video. And it's worth watching that. And you'll actually hear someone say, it's not an apprentice, but someone who's very experienced in post-production. I think he did sound more than animation, but I think there'll be some crossover there. So do have a look at that one, and you might find that that one has some relevance and can answer that question. Next question: are there apprenticeships on film sets here? Well, I suppose, what does virtual production and set lighting mean, and how close to sort of film sets is that? Thea, I'm going to go to you again because I know it's probably closest to your area of expertise.
So virtual production, we have a virtual production stage on site, which is quite a new thing. I'm not going to explain it very well, so I won't try to, but it's basically a facility that's got lots of LED screens around it. So they can shoot using that instead of like a green screen in the background. So they do work really, really closely with the production, the team there. They're in the stage with them all the time. And then our set lighting and rigging departments. So anybody who comes on site, they have to use our set lighting and rigging team. So that's, you know, all the lighting for the productions, all the rigging, all the scaffolding, that kind of thing is what they deal with. So they also have quite a close relationship with the productions as well. In terms of actual apprenticeships on productions, to my knowledge, it's not something that we get involved with. But definitely look on the website, and I believe kind of on LinkedIn, the odd job does pop up for productions on site here.
Okay, thank you. Next one, the questions are really coming in now thick and fast, so I'm going to try and go through these. What age do you need to be able to get an apprenticeship? So, well, how old were the three of you when you got onto yours?
I was 21 because I'd left university, yeah. But I believe it's 18.
I was 19 and I did a year of A-levels first, so I was a year forward, so it would be 18, I imagine.
Yeah, so just looking at there, it didn't say specifically, but I'm looking at some of the levels that they are, but they're probably for 18. It's probably once you've finished sixth form or you've finished college is the time to get on to those. I'm going to ask Abby this question because I know you were saying how much you enjoyed creative things, Abby, and I guess your role is sensibly a creative one. What do you think would be the most enriching job position or apprenticeship would be for someone with a creative background?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it depends. I think creative is such a broad term. I know that we have an in-house graphic designer and she's very creative. She does a lot of poster making for the tour, things that you see on social media she makes. So yeah, I think it depends on what kind of creative avenue you want to go down. I think creativity can be being a director, it can be a photographer. So yeah, I think really think about what you mean by creativity and then focus in on one of those.
Sure. Okay. Let's go to. I'm going to go back to Thea with this one. How much input do you have on production, and do you offer? Okay, question in two parts. This. Let me ask you the first part first. How much input do you have on production? So, I mean, you're often also there on site. So, do you ever have any input? Do you ever have any suggestions?
Not particularly. As studio staff, we're here to kind of aid the production. So we wouldn't get involved in terms of what the production is doing. But what we can do is when people are on site here, if they, need a space, we can suggest stuff that might work for them. But in terms of like the actual content of the film production, it's not something that we get involved with.
Okay, and then Emma, I know you said in your IT role that you have to be very reactive to what the requests and the demands are, but have you ever been able to affect, or has anyone sort of changed the way they were going to do something because of a suggestion that you guys could make, or are you strictly just doing what you're told?
So I think with so I know I said I'm IT, but infrastructure. So that covers a lot of security and where they store and manage their content. So I say we do have quite a say in how they do things because we have to make sure that the content is safe. So we've had loads of scenarios before where production, especially during COVID, when people are like, oh, I need to access this from home. So we have to make sure that the way that they do that is secure and no one in the public is able to see it. And we do often not, you get someone, they're like, oh, I want to do it this way, and they don't really have as much knowledge in that as we do. And we have to say, well, I'm sorry, you can't do it that way, but let me work with you, and this is how we can do it securely. So we definitely do have an input in that regards. But as like Thea said, when it comes to actually filming the content and stuff, we don't get involved with that. It's just how they manage the content securely.
Sure. Okay, thank you. It's a question about A levels here, which we may have answered since the question was submitted, but I'll ask it anyway. What A levels would you recommend to go into film, media, and TV? So again, if any of you have had your time again, are there any particular A levels or choices at college that you think someone should definitely do if they really want to go into film, media, and TV?
In my A levels, I did an A level in media, and that was really beneficial. So it was super broad. Part of it was sort of we made like a film trailer, so it was videography. Part of it was editing, so you sort of do that sort of post-production side of it. You learn about a bit about journalism. So it was a really broad subject. So yeah, I did an A level in media, but I'm not sure what would be on offer specifically for filmmaking, but I imagine graphic design isn't a bad one. There's photography A levels, so there's lots of creative ones that could lead you in that direction.
Okay, thank you. Another question that's related to this. I'm currently studying my A levels and I've applied to study film and drama at university next year. Well, do Warner Brothers provide work experience? So there's a couple of other questions here about work experience. I don't know whether any of you are in a position you can answer that you know what the work experience situation is.
We have offered work experience in the past. However, I know due to COVID, it wasn't something that we could do, as you know, with COVID, film production changed massively. So I am not 100% sure, but it's always a good shout to keep an eye on our website. If anything happens, it should be posted there.
Sure. Okay. I know that your colleague Julie was on the call earlier, so she may be in the background somewhere. Julie, if you are watching this at the moment and there's kind of a stock answer or someone we should direct people to, if you just type it in on the questions, then I will read that out. Excuse me. I'm going to ask Emma this question. Are the people on site filming content therefore not working for Warner Brothers but just using the facility? So are there lots of contractors? How does it work?
So yes, we do. We have film productions and we have tenants and we have third parties that work on behalf of the productions. And we also have non-Warner Brothers shows. So we get Universal and Paramount here sometimes. And then you get third-party editing companies like Framestore, The Third Floor. They're all third-party VFX editors that work on these shows. So it's not just Warner Brothers all the time here. You do get the variety, and then you don't treat them differently, but you have to approach them differently because they have different demands and stuff like that.
Sure. Okay. What's the best apprenticeship for someone interested in directing? Well, I mean, first of all, how many of you, I guess probably Theo or Emma would be most likely to, do you ever meet any film directors?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there a natural pathway? And again, I'm asking you something that you're not directly involved in, but is there a natural pathway from any of the production apprenticeships that are on offer? I mean, I'm guessing all directors probably started by doing something like set lighting or virtual production, didn't they? They haven't just become a director directly from school or university.
I genuinely think that any of the apprenticeships that we offer would be good for becoming whatever you want to become here. I think it's a really great opportunity to get your kind of foot in the door in terms of getting into the industry. And yeah, like Emma, she's in IT and obviously has interactions with people, and I'm in client services and I have interactions with these people, and I'm sure all the other apprentices will do too.
Okay. Again, anyone jump in to answer this one? What type of jobs within Warner Brothers would be best suited to someone who has an interest in film, media, and English? So, well, Amy, that's kind of the same question as what if you could do any role within Warner Brothers, what would you do? Because you obviously had an interest certainly in English, but what sorts of roles might someone do combining those three things?
Yeah, I think having an interest in film, you could work in any role at the studios or tour, to be honest, because the tour focuses on Harry Potter, the making of, so lots about filmmaking. It's sort of like a history in filmmaking, essentially. And then working at the studios, this is the same. So you're surrounded by it a lot. I'd say specifically if you have an interest in English, a job like mine or Abby's in marketing, we do a lot of copywriting, and that's not just writing stuff for like the website. We write social posts, press releases, lots of internal communications. So there's lots of writing involved, and it sort of encompasses all of it, really.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. Do you offer actual film making jobs? And Emma, I want to go to you on this question because I wonder whether have you ever watched a film that's been made there that you've perhaps provided some IT support for and sort of sat back and thought, yeah, I made that film?
Probably not quite I made that film, but I can definitely, I've watched a lot of films that were filmed here, and one of my favorite things to do, it sounds a bit sad, is when the credits roll, like I know them, I helped them, I set up their phone. So yeah, it's definitely cool to be able to do that, but I definitely don't think I had a big enough impact to help them film it.
Sure, but I guess, I mean, looking at some of the apprenticeships that you offer, so particularly virtual production, plumbing, set lighting, post-production, all of the people involved in that, yeah, they may well appear on the credits. They are all a very integral part of that film or production being made, aren't they? So I guess a lot of the jobs on the sides of it that you work on are all part of that process. That's fair to say. Okay, next question. I do music technology. Can that be used for any type of job that you will have at the studios? Again, I'm going to answer that by saying, again, the webinar that we ran previously on film production, I'm sure someone in post-production worked in music, which of course is a big part of it. Emma, from an IT perspective, do you get involved in some of the audio or the music side of it?
No, I think that would be more a Delaney thing than us.
There's more in post-production. I would like to eventually work in production, but I'm not very confident. Is being confident important to this job? And if so, do you have any tips on gaining confidence?
I would say, like I was saying earlier, I was quite a shy person. I think an apprenticeship is a really good opportunity to kind of grow yourself as a person. Obviously, when I started, I had just turned 19, didn't really know what I was doing. I moved from the other side of the country and it was all very daunting. and I was like, I want to go into film, but I don't know what I want to do. And coming and doing an apprenticeship, you're on site, you're in the thick of it, you get to see all the different kind of departments, not only that we have on site, but within the productions. And I think that can kind of help build your confidence when you're kind of there and you understand the processes that, you know, film production go through on a daily basis. So I don't mean to say it's fundamental, but it's definitely something that I think is quite important to build on.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Because yeah, I mean, because you said when you first joined there that you weren't as confident, you certainly weren't as talkative, and you've obviously developed that confidence. And I guess that just comes from being slightly more confident in your working environment and the role that you do as well, doesn't it? So you're what, 4 or 5 years into the workplace now, and that probably sort of transcends a variety of roles. Let me have a look. What other questions have we got here? Are there any apprenticeships available from age of 16? So we think they're just from the age of 18, don't we? But apprenticeships in general are available for 16-year-olds. But I think the ones that we're looking at here are more suited to 18-year-olds. Could you? I'm going to ask Abby this question because I haven't asked her a question for a while. Could you still get an apprenticeship if you are not studying anything related to film? And probably the proof's in the pudding here.
I don't know if I'm the best person to ask because I didn't apply for one, so I'm not exactly sure what you had to put forward to apply for one. But I think from what everyone else is saying, like Amy, for example, did English and she went into a PR apprenticeship, so maybe it's good to have some transferable skills. But yeah, I'm not too sure actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me ask you a different question then. Was any part of your application, you're going into a very specific marketing role, but were you asked about your interest in film or media production, or were you asked to perhaps name some things that happened on site that you were aware of?
Yeah, I definitely think they want you to show that you have an interest, not necessarily, you know, because you've taken a course, but just show that you have a real passion and love for film and entertainment industry. It definitely helps because people want to work with people who are happy to be at the workplace. So I think, yeah, show that you've got an interest, but I don't think it necessarily is important to have a course that is directly related to the apprenticeship.
Sure. Okay. There's a couple more questions just around different apprenticeships if you want to go into production. So I suppose, I mean, have a look at that. Have a look at that. Those Reach apprentices. So the two that stand out to me would be, I guess, virtual production and post-production. But I'm guessing set lighting as well is also going to give you a good grounding and understanding of that sort of wider production. Correct me, is that right, Thea? Do you think something specific as set lighting give you a good understanding?
I think so, and I also think the client services one is really great because I did study creative media production at college, and obviously you can learn a lot, but it's totally different when you're here and, you know, you're interacting with all the different people from the different departments. And for me, I found it really useful because you can, you know, read as much as you want, but actually being here and speaking to these people and seeing how the film process works it's really useful.
Yeah, okay. And then the next sort of question has just reminded me that I've been using jargon quite a bit. What do we actually mean by post-production? Thea, let me go to you again. What does post-production mean?
So after the production's finished filming here, they then need to edit the stuff together. So that includes like sound, color grading, the sound mixing. You know, they could have been filming on a beach somewhere and actually they've gone to play it back and you can't really hear what the actors are saying. So then they have to do ADR where they re-record the sound. So post-production kind of encompasses everything that happens after the filming has been finished.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And then, well, thank you to Julie who answered my SOS call to give me an explanation about work experience. I know several of you have been asking this. So the response that I've got is there's only limited work experience opportunities at the moment, but the focus is more on paid internships and the apprenticeship scheme, which we've spoken about. So do have a look at the recruitment pages for more information. And as if by magic, I'm going to put up on the screen now, the QR code right smack bang in the middle of your screen there will take you directly through to the general careers page at Warner Brothers Studios Leavesden there. So that will give you a lot of information, certainly about all of the Reach apprenticeships that we've already spoken about, and any wider recruitment questions that you might have as well. So that is your go-to place. So do have a look at that. We've reached the hour, so it's been full of loads of questions, so thank you so much for submitting those questions. If I haven't answered your question directly, hopefully we've spoken around that subject and you're slightly better informed now. What I would ask for anyone that's watching the session live at the moment, could you just type into the questions tab for us? It's good feedback for us to have. If there's anything that's really helped you in watching this webinar, just explain to us what it is that's been really helpful, and then that will help us when we're devising future webinars. But thank you in advance to all of you who have watched and have contributed to this one as well. Thank you so much to our panelists. I know that Amy had to shoot off. She had a meeting to go to, so she disappeared a couple of minutes earlier. So thank you very much to her. But thank you so much to Thea, to Emma, and to Abby, and to your colleagues and your managers as well for freeing up your time to join us this afternoon. I've found it incredibly informative, and I know if I was still at school or college, I'd find that your story is really, really inspirational, and certainly I would be looking for jobs and opportunities at Warner Brothers Studios Leavesden. So thank you so much to you guys for giving up your time this afternoon. Just finally on the screen, so I've said about the QR code right in the middle, which will take you directly through to the Warner Brothers careers site. The QR code in the top left will take you through to all the previous HOP webinars that we've run. So we've run over 50 now over a 2-year period. So one of them was specifically around TV and film production, which covered, there's a lot of crossover with the things that we've spoken about today on that one. You may well find that there are other videos on there as well that will be useful for you, and you want to watch or you want to share with your family and friends as well. So do have a look at those. So in closing, really hope you've enjoyed the webinar today. Hope it's given you really, really good information about your next steps going forward. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks for joining us as well as our panelists, and we wish you all the very best in your future career pursuits.